Good evening, brother.
Good evening. How you doing tonight?
Well, I'm extremely confused, to be honest with you. The stuff you posted, I went and read, and I'm more confused than I ever was.
Well, hopefully we'll help you with that.
Because none of those numbers are on any of the documents that I have obtained, meaning the warranty deeds.
Well, no, they're that's why I say they're not valid documents. They're not, none of them's done right. So we have to do the correction.
That's okay. I'm good to learn. But yeah, there's no buts there. I've never even heard of what you sent me. I was like, okay. Nobody's ever mentioned this stuff ever.
No.
So, brother, stop doing that to me, okay? you're freaking burying me here.
Well, when we get going on the screen share here, I'll show you. This is the screen we're looking at today. And if you look up here, we're going to be starting here, and we're going to try to cover all these. And so I've got about 15 windows open on this one, but I've also got this one where you can see all these.
Oh yeah, you're worse than me.
Yeah, I do a lot of research, folks. See this, and you see all the, we're gonna go over a couple of these in here tonight. And then here's a bunch more with all the securities instruments and equity stuff that I look up. So I do a lot of research. And I need to start clearing some of these boards. That's why I decided I'm going to be doing the meetings Monday through Friday from now on. And I actually opened the room a little bit early tonight because I needed to get in here and get the room open up, see if we're going to get some more people joined in before the meeting actually starts, instead of having trailers in the last 5 minutes.
Right.
I want to open up the end to question sessions because I need to learn stuff too, folks. And so when I have that end where I'm looking for questions from people and I get no questions, I'm getting no help myself. I need your help in this. So I end up leaving the board open so people can have questions, and then I don't get any questions. So trying to impress people to get into these meetings. I think they're going to be important. They're going to be short 40-45 minute Zooms, and that's it, Monday through Friday. And that way it's short little pieces that everybody can take some quick notes on and do some research overnight or throughout the next day or so. So anyway, we're going to hang out for another couple minutes while people come in and see if we get some more people in here.
Yeah, Keith, can I ask you a question real quick?
Yeah.
Will because the stuff's been put in a trust, does that change anything?
People have to realize when we're talking about this trust, ain't nothing really in a trust anymore. When it comes to the public charitable trust, the reaches of a charitable trust only reach about 1,000 people. Once it gets beyond 1,000 people involved in a charitable trust, it doesn't really it's no longer really beneficial. If there's that many people in a beneficial public trust, how many people are running it, and what are the resources?
Right.
You know.
Well, they actually name the people that are the trustees in the trust. Are you talking about beneficiaries, trustees, and
right? Because if the beneficiary is not named and the trust only has a certain number of funds, how much is each beneficiary going to get? Well, it then depends on the number of beneficiaries. And in today's world, when you've got 380 million beneficiaries in one country here, and the capital on that is based on zero intrinsic value, that means 380 million people have to learn how to put their own value into that instrumentality. and they're not
Right.
doing that. So it's not really beneficial.
Right. Well, we weren't really taught what everything you just said is absolutely true, 100% great. But, nobody knows that. Nobody. Well, a few
And
hundred.
that's why I say you can follow Story and Pomeroy and all them guys. And like I said, I've spoken to Patrick Devine. I talked to Rourke here now and then, but you don't really want to follow anybody. You want to do as much research as you can so you know.
I
And
agree.
this is one of the things that I knew about in my early days, because as part of that public charitable trust, that's what supports the foster care system. But as being part of that foster care system, I knew none of that was funneling down to the one that needed it, and that was myself. Now, I didn't realize this until my adult age and did my own reflections on my younger days. But in realizing that, it brought me around to realizing that this trust that we talk about today isn't really a trust. It's just a bunch of fake contractors running around contracting and enforcing it because they have a standing army that believes the same thing they do. And that's it. That's all it is. If you want a charitable trust, look to the true charity, the one that
Right.
provides you the chariot, the mobility to get around. No one else does that but natural life and the creator thereof. So anyway, like I said, we're gonna be dealing with more or less the number in regards to changing things around rather than the name, because the name is already set. We already know it's a variation of different things. And the same thing with the numbers. We see all the checks with different numbers and all the money orders with different numbers, all the bills and coupons and receipts, and it's just full of numbers. And what we want to do is we want to confine it down to one source number so that every number relates to that number. So that is the clearing office and no one can surpass that. In other words, what we're seeing today in relation to this public trust, even, we have all kinds of people that are assigned as trustees believing they are performing the tasks of a public trust that doesn't really exist. I don't trust them. Do you? Okay. So does that public charity trust really exist? Does a charitable trust exist through a 501c3 church that professes first it must make a profit and then show all the expenditures that took away the profit, and therefore they made no profit and are operating nonprofit, as opposed to your intent is not to profit to begin with? See, it's all backwards. And so when we think about the numbers and stuff, that's what we're going to work on. This is a document from January 22nd, 2009. And I just want to confirm everybody can see my screen.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. And this is from U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And what I want people to comprehend, these are the bank, the post office, the court, and the Census Bureau. They operate everything, and it starts with the census. Period. Originating office, FO. What is FO? Malika, you know this one. I mean, it's all a big game. Don't we play that on a big old field?
Field office? What do you mean?
Yes, field officer, originating office, field office, CCS. That's something to do with commodities. Procedures for requests from the trade for official certification of documents by Customs and Border Protection. That is we're not hearing you, brother Raymond. I see you speaking, but we don't hear you. So anyway, the purpose, it says to define and set forth procedures to ensure that all CBP offices, including field offices, that process requests from the trade for official certificates of disposition of imported merchandise, do so in a uniform manner and at a fee commensurate. You see the surety there? Commensurate with the actual cost of the service rendered as required by 19 CFR 2412. 1924 CFR 12 excuse me. Right to make entry of importations by other than common carrier. So when we're talking about imports and exports, we have a right of entry of the importation other than a common carrier, because we're not a common carrier. We're not part of the post office. We're supposed to be operating as a post marshal, as our own trading post, a port of entry, entrepot, ENTREPOT. And that's a very important term, French, port of entry. Our port of entry is at our front door, not in the United States, not at the exterior border of interior states, nothing like that. Our customs border is at our doorstep. We are foreign to each other. We are not common carriers. So the policy as a service to the trade community. Nowhere do they discuss the expense of this service. Nowhere is this service, the expenses of this service discussed other than the tax code. That's the cost of the service of imports and exports, is the tax.
So this is the exercise of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 1.
Yeah, yes, one. Congress shall lay and collect
taxes.
Guess what? When we're talking about Customs and Border Patrol and the Congress, we're talking about the International Congress and the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union, which the Congress of the United States and the Constitution of the United States are subject to. They are subservient to. They are servants to that Congress. So CBP has routinely issued official certificates such as certificates of landing and disposition of merchandise arriving in the U.S. from a foreign country. Now, that land stewardship certificate is the same thing, but it's not going to arriving in the U.S. from a foreign country. It's arriving from a foreign country, a country of origin to a foreign destination, your doorstep. That's where that landing certificate and disposition needs to be placed.
All right, so once we get these numbers, then we could start using those on those applications for the tax exemption forms that
Amazon
so many companies have.
Amazon shipments, online orders, your local restaurant, like we were talking about giving them that phone number the other day, and it's already shows that the excise tax, same thing. We're going to give this number, it's going to show that everything is already prepaid, everything. Including
the alleged charge.
Yep.
So would you have to send it in to them individually?
No, you just take that document that they hand you, go to a restaurant, you spend Federal Reserve notes for dinner. You take the receipt, attach that number, reimburse it to the credit account. And instead of using a credit, like we said earlier in our Zoom, we're going to set it up so we have a card. So that anytime we go, it's automatic electronic transaction. So we don't have to worry about paperwork anymore. Same thing with the officer that gives a citation. We're going to take that. We're going to attach it, that number to that. And we're going to send it to Customs and Border Protection. Have Customs and Border Protection give that officer diplomatic notice. A suit may be filed against you in your private capacity if you do not correct and do the correct set off as you are the trustee to do so. So that number is very important. And that's why I say, quit dilly-dallying with the name. You can write it any way you want. You can make a logo and any kind of description you want. But as long as it's associated with a derivative number that no one else has any longer, or even has a right to ask, then it's got to go through that number for diplomatic notice, period. And we're not dealing with merchandise. Malik and I went over this form that I'm going to show you here. We're not dealing with merchandise. Usually the shipper. These certificates provide official acknowledgement. And when we look up the definition of acknowledge, it means make. So these certificates provide official makers, that certain merchandise was landed in the US from a foreign country, and provides information to the requesting party, usually the shipper, as to the disposition of the merchandise. So again, we're always talking about merchandise. We're no longer going to use merchandise. Anytime we see commercial terms, we're going to line item veto them and write above them article, article, article. So when we do this, we're going to get a hold of the Customs and Border Protection. And this is the form we're talking about, to update the importer identity form, because that's what they've done. They've made us an importer. We are importing everything. Every time we give them data elements, we're treated as an importer of data elements, and we need to quit it. So we're going to correct the importer identity form right here. And this is the one Malik and I just went over just before we got on here. This is Department of Homeland Security, and they are actually under the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. And like I said, the Customs and Border Protection deals with the census, taxes, judicial system, and the enforcement of all things within their system, period. Create, update importer identity form in relations to 1924-5. Oops, it's not going to give us 5 there, so this is when we're going to have to check. And it says reserved. How about that? Entry process. So they don't want you to see the entry process by normal. You got to really dig for it. But that's what we're doing. We're correcting the entry process.
Keith, that's 24/5, not 124/5.
Did I do that wrong?
Yeah, you put 142 is what this actually says, but you're looking for 25.
Filing
Yeah.
identification number. There we go. See, filing of the identification number. Everybody's got the name, but they've got the wrong number filed. We're no longer going to be an importer or exporter. So when we look at this form and we see it says as the importer, consignee, or other party listed in block 1. Block 1 gives us this information right here. Anything above this line. Then they got program codes. We don't know what the program codes are. We're the importer of the record. However, we no longer wish to be the importer of record, because we are now going to do a drawback. We're going to draw everything back and fix the record. So we're a drawback claimant. I do not intend to import. No more. I'm no longer an importer. And I'm no longer a corporation, a government, a U.S. government, a partnership, a state, local government, an LLC, a sole proprietor. I'm not a foreign government. I'm just one individual.
Notice you don't even have to check that box. It's one of the ones that is not required. So
Right,
if you decide that not even that applies, because we don't want them to think that we're a Title V USC 52A individuals.
Right. When we read this here in the red letters, it says all the data elements with a red asterisk are required. So we don't even have to put any of this stuff up here. Just the importer, business, private party name. We can put the private party name. And then down here, we can check, I wish to be assigned a CBP number. Check here requesting a CBP assigned number and indicate reasons. And we can put all of them. Because I have a social security number, but wish to use a CBP number. I have no social security number, and this is inconsistent. And I agree with it because I have a card that has a social security number. I also have no social security number because I recognize the card belongs to social security. So now in this, we're going to be able to help correct that part of the record. I have no IRS number because I have a social security number, which is a tax identification number, but is not specifically assigned by the IRS. I have not applied for an IRS number or social security number. I didn't know I was applying for a social security number. I thought I was getting a social security card that was making me a beneficiary. Again, and it's inconsistency. I didn't apply if it wasn't actually valid for application. I am not a U.S. resident. Just because you conferred a nationality upon me doesn't mean I'm a U.S. resident. I deny the conference. It was done before I was of age to recognize that actual conference. Was merely nothing but an honorary title that was then subjected to me as through my education, as though I had to have a job and I had to have a social security card to get a job, and I had to have a driver's license to be able to get back and forth to work to keep the job. It's all profoundly stupid. And so we see we don't have to fill any of this out. We can just give it back to them and say, we want a number, period. So basically that's what we're going to do. But in order to enforce why we need the number, we have to give them something. So we've got to go in this knowing this stuff. I'm not an importer. They're going to ask you, well, what do you mean? Don't you buy and sell things? No, I don't. Technically, by necessity, I have to go to the local market and buy things. But that's because I haven't figured out the end user thing and the difference between the legal entity customer and the beneficial owner and all this. And that's why we're doing this. Knowledge on our side as well as their side. I guarantee you, when we deal with these customs and border protection official, a lot of these guys won't know this stuff either. So be prepared. But then when we look at this form and we go on into 19 CFR, one of my favorite sections, the entry numbers. Everything's got to have a number on it first before they can title anything or put a name on it. Every document has a number. That's why I refer to the OMB number. If it doesn't have that OMB number, it's not a valid document. It's being entered in through a different numbering system that isn't valid. It's only a presumption. Period. Period. Your warranty deeds at the local county courthouse, somebody mentioned earlier, you can't find that number. Right, Scott? Because it's not a valid number. It's not a valid entry number. It should be 11-digit number. Placement on CBP forms. The importer or broker shall place an 11-character entry number on the entry and corresponding entry summary documentation. This here on the entry, the warranty deed, and corresponding entry summary documentation. Like I said, it's just like a promissory note. If that warranty deed doesn't have an entry corresponding entry document summary, then it's not valid, even if it does have an 11-digit number. There's no corresponding entry summary documentation. It's all fraud. And again, I'll post all these links. 141.12, as we saw earlier, was the right to make an entry. These guys they don't have a right to make an entry, and therefore there's no entry. That's why they're using evictions. It's a commercial term. They don't have the right of ejection because they don't have the right of entry to give them right of possession. They can only hold instrumentalities conferring rights, titles, interests, nothing else. And those are important to them only, not to yourself, because you are not a common carrier. Actual owners, declaration and superseding bond of actual owner. So again, when we're talking about that warranty deed, there's no actual declaration. So as the owner of the warranty deed in possession, making claims, securitizing it, you now make a declaration showing that you have a superior bond. What's your superior bond? The affidavit you attach to that warranty deed, and then make a public notice of it. Acknowledge and acceptance of abandoned warranty deed with no declaration attached and no proper entry. Once you state that, nobody comes forward and makes a proper entry. Now you've got your claim. Now you can make your claim in the newspaper 3 weeks in a row. Done deal. Your patent is solid. You don't need to worry about bringing forth any prior land patent or anything. You've made it patent.
Hallelujah.
Done. Quit listening to all these gurus trying to tell you, well, you got to search this record. No, those records are already known to be invalid and a presumption because they're all legal records. Break the presumption by knowing the process. Customs fees, charges for storage. This is part of the problem. There can be no customs fees if nobody is storing it. That's the reason for the tax. Somebody has to store it until it is bought or transferred properly. So when we go to Walmart and we see all these products, they've already been paid for them for the product, as well as a transfer fee has been paid. Everything's paid. It's already done. They're charging for the storage. They're charging because the abandoned property has been stored on their shelves and nobody's claimed it.
I claim it.
And we know this how? Because they don't have an 11-digit entry number. Where is the 11-digit entry number? Well, I don't know what you're talking about. Well, that's right, because you're using a 6-digit SKU number. It's all, we really have to come and open our eyes to this stuff, people, and realize it's all because of our own fault. We're the ones giving a filing identification number by accepting the application we file that already has a number on it, the SS5. The 3-digit number XXX represents an entry filer code assigned by Customs and Border Protection. The 7-digit number, which I spoke to you about, Malika, is that redress.
Yeah, I remember.
It's a 7-digit number. It's a unique number they gave you. So we're going to have the CBP assign a 3-digit number for a new filing identification number. We're going to attach your 1-digit check number to it.
Let's see who does the N.
Is a unique number which is assigned by the broker or importer. That tells you the Department of Defense that gave you that number
based on a formula provided by the CBP. Okay.
And the Department of Defense is the one that gave you that 7-digit redress number, telling you that they are the broker or the importer. The check digit is the broker or importer is responsible for ensuring that the check digit is computed by data processing equipment. So it's not saying that he is responsible for assigning a check digit. He's just supposed to make sure that the check digit is computed. So who makes the check digit? For each entry, the broker or importer shall assign a unique 7-digit number. That's your entry filer, the Department of Defense. Publication of entry filer codes, misuse, alternative process. If an importer does not have an assigned entry filer code, or if the Assistant Commissioner, Office of International Trade, or his designee in accordance with paragraph D, misuse of entry filer code, of this section refuses to allow use of an assigned entry filer code, the importer or broker shall obtain forms with a CBP assigned pre-printed machine readable entry number with a computed check digit.
I wonder how they compute that check digit. Such a strange way to say.
Is that a check digit right there? Is that an OMB number? Is that a check digit? Is that associated with a check digit? So this form should be associated itself with a check digit. Does that make sense? Is that not what that says? Shall obtain forms with the CBP assigned pre-printed machine readable entry number and a computed check digit. Is there a machine readable code on here somewhere? We should ask them about that.
They are on mortgages, on those promissory note papers. They have those scan digit things.
And see, this is physical location address. Check this out. Did you know you can use a phone number? Depends on the ISO code. For US address, leave blank. For any foreign address, including Canada and Mexico, insert a 2-character alphabetic ISO code representing the country. Well, if you're not part of one of these commercial countries, how do you use an ISO code? They create an impossibility right here on their code or on their form. They're telling you you have to be subject to an ISO code in order to even be able to use this form.
Well, that's the problem with all the forms.
Exactly.
You know, we don't qualify to even be in the game, but
Correct.
they're inviting us to play.
Yep.
and demanding performance without just compensation and using deceptive forms.
Yep. And so what I did, people, is I'm not going to post them in this chat. When I get done with the video, I'm going to post all those links in the chat comments on Facebook. And people can get into this and start researching this. This is our starting point. We've got to develop that new name, new number, and a new symbol. Now, we already figured out the name change. You can do that on the international web, like I did. I created the faith-based union. That's the name change. Attached a number and a sigil to that. Now it's already recognized on the international forum. Now all I need to do is go to the Customs and Border Protection and establish this is my intent. I need a new number. It's being abused. The Social Security number has been abused, not only by everybody else, but by myself. I didn't know how to use it. Now that I have a better understanding how it's used, I no longer want it to be used at all because I am not an importer or exporter. Not liable. And I think that's a very peaceful way of saying it. And it's all in accordance with their own constitution, their own peace treaty, their own customs codes. It's just a matter of, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I need to correct the records. Here you go. Quit acquiescing and believing that everybody else has any kind of authority to do anything. You have all the authority, and that's the only way it's going to get done. You have to step up, and it's got to be done one by one. I can't create a number for you. I can't give you the intent of the number. You have to realize this stuff yourself. So I urge everybody to really think about it first and get along the lines of realizing it is a different association. Malika's got her own association set up just by operation. She's establishing herself just by operation. It doesn't have to be stated on the international forum, but I hope she does come around and change that .com to a .art or something, girl.
I think about it sometimes, but I'm like, the reasons that I do it is because I gotta connect with people where they are. And it's so difficult for people to remember things.
Right. Well, and when I
You
give out
always
my,
have to say it's .art, or dot anything else besides com.
well, I want to get everybody used to .post because that's where we're going, folks. That's a top level domain extension. That's why they passed the cyber security law this last year. Everything is going electronic. Your provisional CFR is the electronic CFR, not the written CFR in the Library of Congress. So when we refer to things, they're provisional law, we're supposed to refer to the electronic code because everything's going electronic. So anyway, we got about 5 more minutes, so speak up, people.
Hey there, Keith.
How you doing, Casey?
Hey, just great. Thanks. Great meeting here. I enjoy learning this stuff. If I can just have help making this one connection, because this will clarify a bunch of other stuff in my head right now. So I've been, something I've been hearing a lot about and attempting to learn about is different IRS stuff and do this 1099 this 1099 that and get your bills paid and so forth. Tell me, from what I'm understanding from this tonight, this is like above all of that. This makes all of that stuff irrelevant, correct?
Correct. Because when you establish yourself on the international realm as the taxing authority and you're not charging anybody, then what gives them the right to charge you?
Gotcha.
Everything is quid pro quo. And when you come in peace and let them know that you're not charging anybody for anything, you're making fair trades. It says in their tax code, taxes are duly paid by stamp. And when we look at the Federal Reserve notes, they have 4 stamps on them.
Mm-hmm. You said that earlier, yes.
2 on front and 2 on back. So do we need to clarify what stamp or how many stamps and what value the stamps have, what form they have? Because as far as the US code says, taxes are duly paid by stamp. And then it says obligations or other securities of the United States are stamps or other representatives of value. So what is a stamp? It's merely a representative of value.
A representative. Thank you.
So can I write out a document and it is actually a stamp because it has a representative of value on it?
10-4.
Do I have a right to affix my
So
stamp?
where is the representative of value defined? Where is what the representative of value defined?
In regards to the UPU, that representative of value is in the Constitution, and it's known as the Swiss franc. And then you can look up the value of a Swiss franc and what the weights and measures are, and it'll tell you. I think it's 99.9 or 99.0% silver.
So the representative of value is a Swiss franc.
Yes. But again, that's their representative of value to the commerce system for imports and exports. See, our representative of value is that we are to loan unto the nations and borrow from no one. So if you need a loan, I can loan you. Oh, no, we're good. We're good. That's the basic concept.
The spirit of man is the only thing that's a representative of value, and that's why nothing has any value until we put our sign of nature on it. They like to call it our signature, but this is our stamp. I'm alive. I'm here. I earned my living when I got to the egg first.
It's very important to realize this. It's all just a representation. And we have to learn what we're observing, and we have to use it or think about it in a reasonable manner and comprehend everything that that is on anything we see. When we look at a masterpiece of Picasso and look at the abstractness, do we really know what it is? Do we really know what his intent was? No. Same thing with the Federal Reserve note, because we don't know the intent. So we have to place our intent, and that is the value. Got to quit walking around without any intent.
Well, a lot of people don't have intent because they allow the entities, the corporate government entities, to give everything else value. So we don't think anything has value until the government deems it value and puts a digits on it and says, and then of course they'll say,